Welcome back to our SOAP videos. This is week number 6 in the Gospel of Luke, and we have made it to the end of chapter 7 and all of chapter 8. It's actually a longer reading. Right. There's quite a, because 8 is pretty long, and I don't think we get all the way through 8.
I thought we did. We go through 56.
Oh, 56 right now, 46, yeah. Right? Because then, yeah. So 56 verses in chapter 8, plus another 14, 15... in chapter 7. So
yeah, and a lot of things are happening.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of short things. Right. If you're using a Bible that has headings in it or paragraphs, you just see there. The end of chapter 7 is one unit, but then you're just like boom, 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 boom with these little pieces. So it's very quick. It almost makes you think of Mark, not Luke.
Yeah. Great.
So. What are we doing? Give us...
Well, I noticed that too, exactly what you were saying. And, for the first 7 chapters, I kind of noticed that Luke was focusing on people and then focusing on Jesus and his ministry and miracles, right. And then kind of keeping an eye on the Sadducees and Pharisees and experts in the law, what's going on there. But kind of those 3 sets. And then this week, it kind of doesn't. It kind of all flows together. Yeah. He starts off, Jesus goes to the Pharisee's house for dinner. Yeah. So is that under Pharisee or is that under people?
Especially because he's going to interact with
them. Well, then he talks, right? And now he's teaching, and now it's everything, and it's all there together. So this week, Jesus goes to the Pharisee's house. While the Pharisees are certainly keeping a watchful eye on him, he's doing some teachings in there, and Jesus is anointed with perfume. And then later we find sections on his teaching. And an interesting thing is this week, like you said, he starts in parables too, so that's something new there. And there's also a lot of miracles this week too. But like you said, kind of a little bit disjointed, but it's also a continuation, and he's kind of into the day-to-day teaching, it seems like.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the parable that he gives in chapter 7 to the Pharisee is not one of the parables, right? It's just one of these. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Unlike the teaching the masses, where the kingdom of heaven is like. Right. This is more offhanded.
Right. So I want to get into that a little bit. And one of the things that we usually do is we usually give everybody some things to look out for. But I actually have some questions this week. So because I'm sitting here, I'm going to ask a couple questions, nice. And we'll see what the answers are. So if I have them. If I have the questions, I'm sure everybody else does too.
Oh, I assumed you were going to have them answer the questions.
Oh, no, I'm having you answer.
Having me answer the questions. Fun. Okay.
Okay, so the first one, in Luke, Jesus is anointed with perfume by an unnamed woman who is a sinner. Yep. And that actually doesn't help anything because we're all sinners. So yeah. But there is a different version in Matthew and a different version in Mark. And the woman is named, Mary and Martha, show up, but it seems to be at a different time. Yeah. And there's some differences there, maybe not dinner at the Pharisee's house. Right. So how do we reconcile these differences?
Well, the easiest way, I think, is to say there are 2 different events. You say, how often does somebody just come in and dump oil all over Jesus' head and perfume all over his feet, type thing. You're right. The difference is, this one, or the other one, let's say the other one, because we know we have a time and place. The other one happened just before Passion Week, which had to have been at least a year after this. Right. It happened in Bethany, which is where Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived. And it says that it happened at Simon the leper's house. A leper never would have been a Pharisee. Right. Couldn't have been, right? And yet, this Pharisee is also named Simon. So you're like, oh, hold on a second. Right. But Simon, not Simon. Yes, Simon would have been a very common name, because the Hebrew version of Simon would be Simeon. He's the second son of Jacob. I mean, he's a patriarch. How many Simeons? Right. Simon Peter. His given name was Simeon. So just because, they had to have been all over the place. So I think they were two different things. Matthew and Mark don't tell us that there was a parable. They tell us that Judas is like, oh, she's wasting all this money. So I think there are enough differences to say that they were two different events.
And the anointing, not that it would have been common, but certainly more common than today.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, she was expressing gratitude for some reason. We're not told what the reason was. In his parable, he said, which one was indebted more.
Right.
The one, which one was I can't remember the name. Which one loves him more? There we go. Which one loves him more? The one that was forgiven more, right? And he looked at her and said, she's been forgiven a whole lot more than you have, basically. Or at least she thinks she is, right? So she loves me more. You didn't even, wash my feet when I came in or have somebody wash my feet. Here she's pouring this expensive, upwards to possibly a year's worth of
income. Well, and that's the other one, names how much the value of it. And we don't necessarily, there's less detail here.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I got a second question for you. So Jesus in Luke now starts to teach in parables. Why would he intentionally confuse us?
Well, does he confuse us? A lot of people look at parables and say, "Oh, Jesus used parables to help explain the truth because the people weren't getting it, and so he started teaching in parables so that they could finally get it with his cute stories," which is exactly opposite.
Yeah.
Because and we've talked about this, many times before. I think in chapter 8, verse 10, you've been given the opportunity to know the secrets of the kingdom of God. He's talking to the disciples, not the public now,
right?
Because they asked him, "Why are you doing this?" So that, and then he quotes from Isaiah, "Although they see, they may not see. And although they hear, they may not understand." It was actually a way to differentiate between who's going to listen and who's going to reject him. Okay? So Jesus says, I'm going to tell you the truth, but I'm going to tell it to you in a story format, right? And if you're already rejecting me, you're not going to get it.
Right. You're just going to see some seed that falls on the ground.
Exactly.
And a bird eats it.
Right. You're going to hear a nice story. Oh, that was a nice story about the kingdom of God, whatever. But the people who are accepting it are like, hey, hold on a second. I think I know what he means. Or they'll come and ask. And I think the cool part of this is that I think this is really cool of God's character, actually. God doesn't want to punish people. He doesn't want to send people to hell, whatever, right?
Right.
So, but people do reject him. And I believe that the level of punishment works sort of like the level of reward. The more faithful we are, the more we are rewarded. Mm-hmm. The more knowledge an unbeliever has, the more he will be punished for rejecting that additional knowledge. And I think one of the things that the parables does is it shows God's really amazing grace and compassion for people. Because it's almost like, if you're not going to believe what I've already given you, I'm not going to give you more to reject.
Right.
And I just think that is
more
so
coal dumped on your head.
Yeah. I just have always thought that was so cool.
Yeah, that is huge.
Back in Romans 1, people are going to stand before God without excuse because he's given them creation and conscience and all this. He's given them everything that they need to look for more. But he's not going to continue to heap, revelation and revelation and revelation if they're just going to reject it anyway. Right. And I just really think that's cool.
Yeah, that is. Okay, I've got one more question for you. At the end of this week's reading, there are two separate events that happen, and two separate people are brought back to life. And with one, Jesus says, "Hey, go out and tell everybody what happened." And with the other one, he tells the parents, "Hey, don't tell anybody what happened." Mm-hmm. Why two similar events but two different reactions?
Well, And this is my opinion, right? So, as we always say, if it comes from the Bible, it's non-negotiable. If it's my opinion, do with it what you want, right? Because it doesn't really matter. So, first of all, the first one, you say the two came back to life. Technically, the one was just demon-possessed. And Jesus cast out the demon, so he wasn't technically dead, although he might as well have been, type thing, right? That one happened in a Gentile territory. The second one, where Jairus' daughter was raised literally from death, he was a leader in a synagogue. He was a Jew.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing here is this differentiation between the Jews are already starting to reject, and Luke has always been about showing that Jesus is also light to the Gentiles as well, right? So to the Gentile demon-possessed person, he's like, go tell everybody what God has done for you, right? It wasn't about...
Get the word out to the rest of the Gentile nation.
Yeah, to your area.
Versus the Jewish nation, back to don't heap more... Don't give them more to reject.
Right.
Okay.
And he told, what God has done for you. Not I'm the Messiah, not I'm the King of the Jews, but the true God has shown his power over these demons. There is a true God out there, no matter who you worship. You're a Gentile, you're worshiping the, Whereas with Jairus and his family, the people didn't believe. He went in there, said the girl's only asleep, which is a euphemism for death, we understand, but the girl's only asleep, and they're like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're just whatever. He kicks them all out, brings her back to life, and it says that the family was astonished, marveled. I don't think that they even believed. They had called Jesus while she was still sick. Once she was dead, they're like, well, I guess there's nothing you can do.
Right.
So the whole situation was completely different. And we've got, the Jewish people who were like, well, we can't really, we don't have anything to believe. So, again, that's my opinion. That's just some of the differences that I saw, or that I see in these, in these two stories. So,
right. You had a couple good lookout for us. You want to cover those?
Sure. Just a couple of things that catch my attention, or I think is funny or whatever. I love at the beginning of chapter 8, Luke is the only one who mentions that it was a group of women who supported Jesus financially. Sometimes Jesus didn't have a job. How did he?
Right.
Of course, some of the people that traveled with him were wealthy, probably. Okay, we know some of them were wealthy, but it says that there's specific women. There was Mary Magdalene. There was Joanna, the wife of Chuza, who was actually from Herod's household, so he had an in with Herod there. Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their own resources.
So is that many others, just the way it's worded, women, or would it be women and men too?
You know what? I'd have to look it up. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't look specifically. Right. It's a good question, because the Greek text should have feminine. If it was many other women, it would be easy enough to look up.
So how about, back in Bible day, women were treated poorly, right? And may not have had money, but they were financially stable. They maybe didn't have men in their lives because they're traveling with Jesus. Yeah. And the men aren't even mentioned. The women are mentioned first, and they're supplying money to feed a ministry. Yeah. So these had to be, like you said, wealthy women. Yeah. I mean, one of them obviously says, the wife of, Chuza here. So we've got at least one of them. There's this idea that women were treated poorly. I don't think they were treated as poorly as maybe we get the idea that they were. Okay. But they weren't educated, which actually we see showing up in other, I think that's the explanation for other things that we see that Paul teaches, why women should or shouldn't do certain things. There was no school for them. They were not educated in the law. It's just what they were taught at home by their husbands or their fathers, right? Okay. But Jesus did treat them better than I think some of the other rabbis would have. It didn't just discount them.
Exactly. And so I think, of course they believed in him, but I think just his overall demeanor toward them helped attract them as things. as things as not groupies is not a good not
Right.
fans, but they were disciples. They weren't the 12 or the apostles, but they were disciples.
Yeah.
Followers. And after one of the miracles, when he stopped the storm in chapter 8, verse 25, they were all, the disciples, the apostles were all freaking out. And he stopped the storm. He's like, "Where's your faith?" But they were afraid and amazed and saying to one another, "Who is this guy?" It's not how the net says it, but that's how.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? Even the winds and the water obey him. So here we are, 8 chapters into Luke, possibly a year or more into his full ministry with them following and everything, and they still haven't caught on exactly what's going on.
Right. I think we that shows up heavily next week, too.
Yeah, the transfiguration and some other things in next week's reading. The last thing is, this is just a funny. So the woman who had this, long issue of bleeding, Mark notes that she had spent her entire, not fortune, but her entire livelihood on doctors, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. Dr. Luke doesn't mention that.
Yeah. Kind of overlooks that little detail.
He sort of glosses over that. For somebody who wanted to make a detailed account.
Well, the writer
Maybe
gets
not
the
that
last
detailed.
Word, yeah.
He didn't mention that little bit of information. So,
Yeah. Well, we hope everyone is continuing to keep up with the readings. We hope you guys like these formats that we're doing. Yeah. What else? What else do we need to
give your feedback? We'd really love to hear. You can talk to us on Sundays when you see us, or around, or you can text or email. Put your comments in Facebook or on YouTube, and we love to read the comments, questions, anything like that you have. As always, subscribe, download the app. Make sure you like us on Facebook, so that you can get these when they come out. They come out every weekend, Saturday at noon, and then it links over to Facebook as well. So, okay?
All right. We'll see everyone next week.
Next week in week 7.